we don't seem to be hearing the microphone here.
Try the other one. Does this one work?
That's better, yeah.
There we go. Let's see this one. What I said was the numbers for the lottery. So if you got them, you're a winner. No. Okay, so I'm Dwayne Bailey. I'm from South Africa. The vision of Unlock is to empower Africans to participate in the digital age by removing barriers imposed on language by the limitations of technology. And it's a group of us all around Africa addressing these various things. In South Africa, we have 11 official languages. So I think in trying to implement and seeing how governments can implement a multilingual dispensation, shall we call it, I'm acutely aware of the problems and the benefits of it. But I wanted to start with an example of the importance of language. And I'd ask you to pay attention because this could save your life. So I'll say it quite slowly. Gebruik 'n kondoom om gifs te vermy. So did everyone get that? No? I'll say it a bit louder and slower so that it's easier for you to track. Gebruik 'n kondoom om gifs te vermy. Okay, so you've just lost a bit of information that could save you from dying from HIV/AIDS, but it was inaccessible to you. And I think you can understand from that example the inverse of publishing information in English and hoping that people who don't speak English could assimilate and use that information. So the lack of access to information, and I mean access as in actually be able to use it, not that you've got a computer on your desk. The lack of access to information is life-threatening. It threatens your ability to stay healthy. It threatens your ability to access government services. It affects whether your children will have a good education and a good job. So it affects your socioeconomics, your health, and your general welfare. So it's an important thing. And I think when we look at an audience like this, it's clear that at some level we all care about multilingualism. So we either are multilingual or we know people that are multilingual. So some of our best friends are multilingual. If we can express it like that. And it's on the WSIS agenda. You know, we talk about linguistic and cultural diversity. UNESCO talks about it a lot. In a lot of the sessions I've been to, issues of language have come up. How to do IDNs, etc. But my concern is that it's not at the forefront of our agenda. And there are two aspects I want to look at with that. I'll call it the last billion and the fact that everything that we're doing rests on this issue of multilingualism. So the last billion or more, because there are a lot of people who have no access to the internet. Looking at it from an African context, I have that there are 6,000 languages in the world. UNESCO tells me it's 7,000, but I think we won't argue about those thousands. There are lots of languages in the world. There are 2,000 spoken by 1 billion people in Africa. And about 200 of those languages in Africa have more than 500,000 speakers. So a significant population will speak at least one of 200 languages in Africa. There are 15 languages in Africa that have more than 10 million speakers each. And almost none of those are present in any significant way in the information age. So the people who need multilingualism the most are the people that we haven't reached yet, and the people that can benefit so much from the kinds of information that we talk about. If we look at the use of the internet in Africa, and I don't have data for all the other places, for all the other continents, but the predominance of languages that people are browsing are English and French. So it seems to indicate that the people that are accessing this information age are people that are already enabled through access to a language like English and French and Arabic to be part of this, but the rest are ignored. So clearly, for the last billion, it's not an option for multilingualism, it's imperative that we address it. On the aspect of everything resting on top of multilingualism, the words and phrases I've heard over the last few days include things like this: inclusive, knowledge societies, pluralistic, equitable, create, share, diffuse, preserve, linguistic diversity, flow of ideas, increasing knowledge. And all of these things are possible in a monoculture, in a monolingual environment. But it seems in all the sessions that I've been to, it's implied that all these benefits are meant for all of humanity. And it's impossible without multilingualism being a first priority. It's not going to benefit all of humanity if we don't make it a priority. And there's a lot, in terms of the sessions I've been to, there's a lot assumed about what we can do. There's assumptions that that all languages can actually be typed, and there are languages that you can't type and capture at the moment. The software is predominantly not available in these languages, so there's the assumption that it is, or people haven't thought down that road of thinking you have people who don't speak a certain language having to capture on digital equipment that they can't use. There's an assumption that we actually can store these languages. And I'd like to address just one thing. Multilingualism is not IDNs. IDNs are one aspect of multilingualism. And there is the danger, which I think we need to think about, is that IDNs could create silos of monolingualism, a multilingual world of monolingualism. And we need to think quite seriously about how we address that and prevent that from happening, and ensure the free flow of ideas. But I think it's quite important also to show and to talk about what is happening and what people are doing in the space that is leading to multilingual internet. Firstly, ourselves at Unlock, we've developed keyboards that allow people to type African languages that they couldn't type before. We've developed an extended font so that people can actually see what they wrote. And we're translating the Firefox web browser into 10 languages, which opens up the opportunity for people who are not literate in French to capture information in Wolof. We're looking at 100 locales across Africa, which allows people to store documents and information in languages. We're training people on how to translate and localize content and make it relevant for their environment. We're building tools that allow people to create and content and translate content. And we're making spell checkers, because there's nothing as negative for a language as seeing it all underlined in red, and basically the computer communicating to you that your language is irrelevant in the information age. The IDN work, I think it's really important, and it's part of what I would regard as this broad swath approaching multilingualism. The Unicode Consortium is working really hard at making sure that we can store all of these languages. Machine translation from the likes of Google and Microsoft, making sure that people can actually access information in other languages. Microsoft's effort at translating their operating system into African and other languages. And Firefox efforts to have 80 versions of Firefox in different languages. Groups like Global Voices, who are ensuring that blogs are translated and that there's a cross-pollination between communities. Organizations like Midan helping to ensure that there's dialogue between the Arabic and the English-speaking world. And I'm sure you'll tell me and remind me of many others that I've forgotten. But if you're very interested in this, I would like to invite you to the workshop that we're having at 2:30, which is about equality in access to the knowledge society through language and cultural diversity, and it's in room 9. So just in closing from me, multilingualism, I feel, should be our first priority, as the fulfillment of the things that we envision rests on multilingualism. And without that, the phrase, "you have the right to remain silent," might take on a very different meaning.
Yeah.